Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I am bringing you guys an update to my Virtual World budget deck. So I don't believe that I've done an update on this since we got the new support in Blazing Vortex, along with we did just get an update on the Banlist a few weeks ago. So I figured that I would bring you guys this deck profile just to get you guys updated on how you guys can be playing this deck. And depending on your guys' budget, whether this deck is above or below the budget, I will definitely have a whole bunch of different options for you guys. But yeah, this is going to be definitely under $100. You guys can put this deck together. So without any further ado, let's get right on into it. This is just a really cool deck. Has a really amazing toolbox style where you can basically do anything that you want to at any given point with the extra deck, as long as you guys can extend through your opponent's interruption and whatnot. So anyways, we have 3 copies of Lulu. If you guys can't afford 3 copies of Lulu, just do whatever you guys have at your disposal. You can replace Lulu with like copies of cards like Psychic Tracker, along with like Psychic Wheelator and whatnot, but it'll basically do the same thing. Psychic Wheelator is a tuner, which really does help. But yeah, Lulu, not a crazy expensive card, but yeah, it's like sitting around like the $15 mark or something like that. But this is your best starter and extender, because with Lulu, you can special summon this from the hand by targeting a Virtual World card that you control and then sending a card of a different type from your deck to the graveyard. And then once this card gets special summoned by its own effect, then you're able to add a copy of the card of the third type. So if you have a monster on field, then you like pitch a spell to the graveyard, then you can add a trap to your hand or whatnot. Just really your most versatile card. Helps you to really fix your hands and whatnot as well. Then we'll go on into 3 copies of Lao Lao. This card is just also super duper amazing because it lets you revive a monster from graveyard when you special summon it. Then we'll go on into our 3 copies of Lily. This card is also just super duper good for the deck. Also, I mean, it's just pretty standard to be playing 3 copies of all of the Lily, and then also the Jui, just because, Gigi. I always get this mixed up with the Jui in the, or Jui, or however you say it. These cards have just such weird names. Then we'll go on into our 2 copies of, Nyan, and our 1 copy of Tutu. Sorry, I got those cards a little bit mixed up here, but Nyan's just really nice for reviving from the graveyard, as well as the Tutu, which can also be normal summoned as as a level 6, just to be able to normal summon itself is also really cool. I am playing 2 copies of the Psychic Tracker in the main deck. It does have the ability to special summon itself to the field if you have another psychic monster on the field. Otherwise, it has to be a level 3 psychic monster, but we do have a couple of those in the main deck with our Nyan as well as our Lulu. So the Psychic Tracker is just super duper nice for getting a little bit of extra board presence. Really amazing budget option for the deck. Again, you can play this card at like 3 of, or just play like a couple copies of Psychic Wheelator if you can't afford any of the cards in the deck. Then for our hand traps, we want to play our copies of Gamma as well as the Psyframe Driver. This is just really important because the deck did take a significant hit with the VFD getting banned, but we need to play these cards because this is what's going to help us make some really big plays on our opponent if our opponent tries to stop us. And we have a lot of instances where our opponent could try to interrupt us on our turn, so it's nice to have this for like Ash Blossoms and whatnot, or you can just stun your opponent on their turn, which is also really cool. Then we'll go on into our 3 copies of Ash Blossom. This card can actually be normal summoned in order to do a synchro summon play, which is really cool, or even an XZ summon, so keep all of that in mind as well. Then going on into the spells, we have our 3 copies of Kowloon. This card is just so good for getting any of your traps onto the field, or just getting out your the spell, the Qinglong. And speaking of Qinglong, probably like next to the Kowloon, which searches it, like the Qinglong is just so good for the deck. It's like super duper necessary to play this at 3 of. So realistically, again, like I said, if you guys can't afford some of these cards, like the Lulu, it does get pretty hard. But if you guys have bought yourself a handful of packs of Phantom Rage. Getting your hands on all of these commons is going to be super duper easy. And, you know, this deck can run on whatever gas you guys can afford because the commons do a lot of the pushing for your plays as well. So Qinglong, one tip again, if I think I mentioned this in my other profiles, you also, if you're playing this deck online, make sure when you add the card from Qinglong's effect that you make sure what you're discarding, because there's been many times where I activate Qinglong in grave to banish it, add a Lulu to hand, and then I see that Lulu is highlighted, and I get super excited to activate her effect, and then I forget that I still have to discard for Qinglong, and then Lulu just winds up in the graveyard. I have not made that mistake for weeks now, because that is like the simplest mistake to make with this deck when you're playing online. So always make sure that you know what you're discarding off of Qinglong. Your Nyan, your Tutu, or any of the other like spells or traps are just like really amazing targets for this. Then we have our one copy of Emergency Teleport. This card is getting reprinted in the Ghost from the Past, coming out in a couple of weeks from now, so just keep that in mind. If you guys still can't afford this, again, there's a lot of other really great extenders. You have your Psychic Tracker, Psychic Wielder, and a whole bunch of, you know, really whatever you can afford, or even just make this like a Cosmic Cyclone, MST, whatever you guys got lying around at home. Honestly, a little bit of spell and trap disruption is not horrible either. One copy of Foolish Burial Goods. I never want to draw two of these, so I really like just playing the one copy of Foolish Burial Goods. This is basically to pitch your Qinglong to the graveyard. That way you can pick up whatever cards that you need at the moment. One copy of Monster Reborn. I am not playing the X-Saber Gothams hand loop in here, but if you are intending to do that, obviously play Monster Reborn in here, because if you can special summon the Gothams back one more time for the Monster Reborn and pitch an extra card out of your opponent's hand, it's actually really, really awesome. So like Monster Reborn, super duper good in this deck. One copy of Pot of Desires, and then one Upstart Goblin. Desires does get kind of hairy with your Psy-Frame driver, so for that reason, I like to only play one copy. And then the Upstart Goblin, you really don't care about giving your opponent that extra 1,000 life points, so the Upstart Goblin is super great for just increasing your consistency, making sure that you get to those really important cards. You want to have as many of your virtual world cards in your hand as possible, so Upstart and Pot of Desires really helps you to get into that. One copy of Called by the Grave, because we never want our opponent to hand trap us, and so for that reason, Called by the Grave is just really, really awesome if you can get that off. Our 3 copies of Chuche, and then our 1 copy of Zanwu. I've seen people cutting Chuche down to 2. I don't like that. I really like making sure that I get 1 in the graveyard and try to get 1 on the field. So playing 3 copies is really, really nice, just to make sure, you know, if you hard draw 1, that is totally fine, because Chuche is super duper good for the deck. So that's going to do it for our 40 card build. I wanted to keep this really tight at 40. There's a lot of stuff that you guys could still change in here, though, so keep all of that in mind. We'll then go on to the extra deck. We have our 1 copy of Shen Shen. She is just like super duper awesome. They can like super like devastate other opponents' decks, because if your opponent's playing a deck that they really rely on the graveyard, I mean, Shen Shen is just awesome. 1 copy of the Ravenous Croc, because it's like awesome. 1 copy of the Vermilion Dragon Mech, because this card can just really help do a little bit of extra spot removal. 1 copy of Cloud Castle. If you guys are wanting to play the hand loop, this is where you would add like, you know, 2 or like a second or maybe even a 3rd copy of Cloud Castle. 1 copy of Trishula. This is just your budget alternative if you can't afford stuff like the X-Saber Gothams, as well as like Chow Fang and whatnot, if you wanted to play that as well. But yeah, overall, the Trishula just like is a nice little option. We're playing a lot of level 3s in the deck, especially with, again, playing that copy, the 2 copies of the Psychic Tracker. So it's really nice just to like go into Trishula and wreck your opponent's hand, board, and graveyard. 1 copy of the Juijui. I knew that we would, yeah, that's the Juijui and the Gigi? I don't know, I always get them mixed up. 1 copy of Coral Dragon, along with like the Ravenous Croc. They're just super good for drawing additional cards, along with our Stardust Charge Warrior. So that's going to do it for all of our synchros. Going on into our XZs, the Utopia Beyond. If you can stick both of these on the field, and your opponent has like a full board, that's game over, because this reduces, this reduces all of your opponent's monsters' attack to 0, and then this guy can attack all of your opponent's monsters. So it is just nutty. Then we'll go on into the one copy of Jaja and Fan. So I'm not playing the Long, but you guys can definitely do it if you guys don't have a few of these cards or you can't afford them. Long is like probably a 25-cent card, so totally doable. One copy of the M7. This is like your next most cuttable card. Again, if you want to like go for the X-Saber Gothams and like Cloud Castle combo. For the hand loop, totally doable. You can like replace with a few of these cards. Then for like our opponent's monster disruption, we have one copy of the Gossip Shadow, one Photon Strike Bouncer, and then one copy of the Sacred Tree Beast Hypertron. People are really sleeping on this card. This card just came out in Blazing Vortex, another really super duper cheap, super rare. No one's really playing it, but it's no true King of all calamities, but it can get either a monster spell or trap negate, so it is actually really, really nice. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today's deck profile. I will maybe do a competitive deck profile update, probably with like the hand loop and whatnot. So just again, for like your guys' other options, if you guys can afford the Gothams, you guys can totally test that out. Again, we have like the Psychic Tracker, the Long Chow Fang, if you guys can afford that card. And then also with your hand loop, you're going to need the Phantom Fortress card. So those are just a few other options. Again, with the Psychic Tracker, you can also try out Psychic Wielder if you guys can't afford the Lulu. But that's going to do it for the deck profile, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I really would appreciate you guys doing that. And like the video if you guys enjoyed it. And let me know in the comments what other deck profiles you guys would be interested in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace.